Roll Tide, everybody. Welcome to Cover Crimson. I'm Mick Gillispie with Clint Lamb. We're going to watch the coaches' press conference from the Malmore building in Tuscaloosa. We'll hear their thoughts after another loss to Tennessee, another tight game. Team didn't play well. We'll get into that as well here on the show and react and take your comments. So thank you for hanging out with us, and let's get the show started. He's Clint Lamb, and I'm Mick Gillispie. Roll Tide, guys. Thumbs up. Appreciate you. That's a way of saying Roll Tide. A couple things I do want to remind you that we're brought to you by mybookie.ag. Use the promo code NEXTROUND to double your initial deposit. Next round on the mybookie.ag. So when you go in there and put those wagers down, they'll double that initial deposit. Maybe you saw this Alabama game turning out the way that it did. I hate to tell you, but I felt the same way. I was surprised Alabama was favorite, and they lost by 7. Hopefully that changes because they're a big favorite this weekend. So that tells you that Vegas still believes in Alabama, and we do too. But they've got to get some consistent play. And again, that's mybookie.ag. And we're both all the time. We're on covercrimson.com. $1, that sale ends on Sunday. So if you want to try it out, you want to be if you want to be one of the original OGs as we build this thing, and there's a lot of really cool changes coming, the only way you're going to get that badge is to be on from the beginning. And if you do the annual subscription, you get the Cover Crimson t-shirt, which is a very fine piece of wear. For free with the annual. All right, Clint, we're moments away from hearing from the coordinators and then Kalen DeBoer. So many things, people, you guys have gotten into the comments section and you're talking about it. First off, I agree with Justin here, Clint. I'm sticking with the Tide. I'm not ready to jump ship yet or ever. I lived through the Shula days, so.
Yeah, I mean, I'm there too. Are you curious to hear from the coordinators? Because I know I am. I mean, because I feel like Kane Womack is probably going to be a little bit more proud of his defense's performance than people realize. I don't think that it was great. I think where they're weak, Tennessee exploited that some, but you're weak there for a reason. Like it's going to be an exploitable piece. You can try to mask it as much as you want to. But, when you're doing what Alabama was kind of having to do, which was, rush 3 quite a bit, drop 8, you were sometimes getting more guys involved. I thought on third downs, they did a pretty good job of, showing a lot of pressure. But they were bailing guys out quite a bit and only sending 4. We're sending 3 some. But, I think overall, with where the defense was trending, this was a step in the right direction. So I would fully expect him to kind of have sort of a positive view on things. The offense, Nick Sheridan, I guess Kalen DeBoer too, when he comes up, very different story. I mean, I talked about it on Twitter. I mean, Tennessee drives down the field. They take the lead 14-10. Alabama immediately responds. Good drive by the offense. Goes down the field, retakes the lead 17-14. And then Tennessee goes out there and has to punt the football on their ensuing drive. Alabama gets the football. They have a chance to stack on that lead and really create some separation, kind of put Tennessee away. Their next 4 drives, they totaled collectively 4 yards.
Yep.
Turnover on downs, interception, and 2 punts. That is completely unacceptable when you are supposed to be considered an offensive heavy team. And they want as much balance as possible. But with Kalen DeBoer, Nick Sheridan, your returning quarterback who finished number 6 in the Heisman voting last year, I understand there's a lot of moving pieces, but you are still expected to score points. And the fact they could get nothing on their last 4 possessions, I'll be curious to hear what Nick Sheridan's got to say about that.
Here's a question for you. Do you think this will affect recruiting much? I want DeBoer to get as much to get the guys he wants, or I guess better fits for his scheme. And it feels like Milroe is I think he's hurt. I really do. I just don't see the same player I saw in the first half of the Georgia game. And he's not running the same and he's not throwing the same. And then DeBoer's comments, Clint, after the game made me think, maybe there's something there to it, but maybe not. I don't know. But some of those throws were so bad I just don't believe that he would miss, short throws by 18 feet like that.
Well, Tyler Booker did join the next round earlier, and his initial comment was Jalen Milroe's 100%. And then he kind of corrected himself, and he was like, everybody at this point in the season, when you're playing in the SEC, everybody's dealing with injuries. He said he wasn't 100% healthy. And so I don't think Milroe's got anything beyond what most are dealing with from the sound of it. But yeah, I would say he's probably not completely healthy. Some people showed some video of him walking around pregame as guys are warming up, and it seems like he's favoring one leg. I mean, I don't know what the issue is. But I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if he wasn't 100% healthy. But I mean, when you look at the numbers, it's crazy. I mean, what is Jalen Milroe from a passing standpoint? Really, you can talk about his entire game. He's been in the past a vertical shot thrower and then using his legs. Barely used his legs, barely had any success using his legs, and he was 0 for 5 on passes of 20 yards or more. What's more interesting, on passes to his right that we went beyond the line of scrimmage, he was only 2 of 11 in this game. That is pretty wild. He did a pretty good job as far as attacking the middle of the field. Did okay as far as the left, just didn't see as many attempts to the left, but he was, kind of a huge chunk of his yardage was going to the right. Some of that was behind the line of scrimmage, but as far as anything that was beyond the line of scrimmage, just very, very poor throws, which is something that we really haven't seen from him much this year. Everybody wants to talk about that he's who he's always been. No, I saw enough of improvement from him to understand that he was moving in the right direction. He was going through his progressions. He was taking advantage as far as understanding where his hot reads were, being able to get the football out as far as the short to intermediate stuff. He was throwing with more accuracy, with more confidence, whether it's injury related, whether it's mental games, whatever the problem is, he's not playing like the same player he was earlier this year, including that first half against Georgia. This wasn't just, he's playing Western Kentucky, he's playing USF, he was doing some really, really good things against Georgia. So he has improved. I think he's now regressed. Don't get me wrong, but he's not the same player he was when he became the starter. He's capable of doing all those things that he had been showing earlier in the year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so if this is where he is right now, there were a lot of people that said, hey, you know what, Ty Simpson, he has another game like that where he can't make a pass, then you might have to, put somebody else in. I mean, that's the way that life works. I'm not pulling for that, but I'm just telling you the way that he played against Tennessee, if he's healthy, it's just not good enough. And that's why I just don't, I feel like the reason is that something's wrong, something's off. I mean, we've seen him play a ton of games, but that play awful. I mean, playing awful. I mean, the second half of the game, he's missing high school passes.
Yeah, I mean, and I'll say this to answer the question because I never got around to answering it. I mean, Auburn, what is their record right now? How poorly are they playing? What's the product look like for them? Is it hurting their recruiting class? They look as bad as I've seen them look in a very long time. No. So is this hurting recruiting? Not. It can. It depends on how you attack things. But no, I don't think that the way they're performing. I mean, you can pitch to guys, you're the missing piece. Right. We have a lot of talent. We're going to continue to have the talent, the resources and all those things, but we need you to do what we want to do. That is a strong sell, especially when you're backing it up with some NIL dollars. So, it's all depending on how they're approaching some of this, but just saying, okay, it doesn't look like how people want it to look on the field. That's going to deter recruits from wanting to come to Alabama. Maybe that is important in the minds of a few, but I would not say, a large portion of guys are really viewing it that way.
Yeah, great comment by Philip saying, hey, Saban lost 2 games with Bryce Young and Will Anderson and Dallas Turner and Terry. Yeah, like star players. But the problem to me, Philip, is that when I'm watching the team play over the last 3 weeks, I just don't see any consistency. Not saying that Saban coming in would be the answer. He would have won the game on Saturday because he would have played a smart game and won it. He's a master of that. DeBoer just made some tactical mistakes to me at the end of the game, including not punting when, your guy goes out there and gets a 15-yard bonehead penalty and on 4th down and you're 4th and impossible. So you give him a field goal. No, punt the ball there. Unfortunately, it's kind of where we're at. All right, we got the press conference going. Let me throw on Kane Womack and we'll get this thing going.
Together as a football team in terms of identifying the things that we've got to continue to build in consistency so that we can have success in the end and find a way to win. We had 11 game changers. We had 3 takeaways, 3 sacks, 3 3-and-outs, and then 2 4th-down stops in the way of missed field goals that we were able to kind of hold in that high red zone area. I thought we actually stopped the run well outside of 3 explosive plays. And so you look up, obviously the yardage is not what we want, but you look at how they got those yards. It wasn't 7-8 yards a carry. It was 3 explosive plays given up. One of them obviously being a quarterback scramble. One of them we were able to create a takeaway on, and then a misfit, a misleverage. We let a guy outside, and they were able to hit a 35-yard chunk on us. So those are things that have to continue to work to get cleaned up. I think that's some of the consistency and execution that we have to continue to provide and build that we're not there yet. And those explosives obviously are costly. For us, discipline to do your job over and over again is the key, especially against a team like that that can create explosive plays. I thought there were a lot of great things to point to. But ultimately, you look at it, our goal of the week was 12 game changers. We got 11. It kind of felt like that was the game, is we ultimately needed one more stop. We needed one more play from a defensive perspective in order to win the game, and we came up short. Those are hard things to deal with as a team, but our players, I think, are ready to go to work and to respond. And some young players that have stepped up last week and are going to be asked to step up moving forward as well. And so I think they're all ready for the challenge. I talked to the players yesterday. All that should be on our minds is, what do we have to do to beat Missouri on Saturday? And anything outside of that is a distraction and does not keep focus on the main thing. And ultimately, during adverse times, right, that's what you have to do, is keep the main thing, stay focused on the task at hand. And I think our guys are doing a really good job in that. Moving forward to Missouri, certainly a lot of familiar faces and I guess familiar schemes. Eli Drinkwitz and I have known each other for a long time. Both grew up in Northwest Arkansas. Their defensive coordinator, Corey Batoon, was my defensive coordinator at South Alabama for the last 3 years, worked for my dad for a number of years. So obviously system scheme wise, right, there's a lot of similarities. And then, very impressed with Kirby Moore and what they've done offensively. You see elements to what Drink has done over the years under even going back to Gus Malzahn and some of the things that he was doing at App State and NC State. And then certainly you see a lot of the flavor even of some of the things we do offensively under Kirby Moore. And so a lot of formations. They're certainly explosive on the outside. A lot of different things and pictures that they're going to show you. They've got a really dynamic passing game with an experienced quarterback. I think the dude is a extremely tough player. To be able to go whatever it was, I think it was the second drive of the game, he was out, and then to come back in the third quarter and really, willed his team to win the game through running the football and scrambling, I thought was really impressive coming off of an injury. So impressed by their team, impressed by their toughness and their grit, and we'll certainly have a tremendous challenge on Saturday that we're working very hard to make sure we maximize our opportunities.
Yeah, hey coach, you mentioned Missouri's ability for explosives downfield. Just how concerning is it when you see wide receivers kind of get open deep on a consistent basis? And what do you do to kind of fix that?
I think for us, right, making sure that you have layers to what you're doing defensively. You want to make sure that you're staying on top of routes. There's times, right, where you're going to challenge routes in the first 10 yards. And so there's different ways of being able to defend the deep ball. So sometimes you want to stay on top of the route. Sometimes you want to defend it right where you're challenging things in the first 10 yards. And even though you may be, step for a step with a guy or whatever it may be, you've disrupted the timing of the route to eliminate some of the deep threats as well. And I think, those are the things that you've got to just continue to be able to harp and work in and mix it. And pressure is most certainly a huge piece to being able to defend some of the long throws downfield as well.
Two questions on that side. We'll go to Chase and Colin.
You mentioned at the top some young guys had to step in and play football. I assume two of those you're talking about are King Mack and Bray Hubbard. How did they play, in your opinion?
Well, I thought Bray really did some great things in the game. Obviously, had a huge third down stop when we needed to go 3 and out in that scenario right there and get the ball back for our offense. And he made a hell of a play. I thought he did some really good things in the game. King was asked to do a tough deal. He's played multiple positions, both our field safety and our nickel, the Husky position, and I thought he battled his tail off and made some plays, and ultimately I know he would have loved to have had that last touchdown back, but there's some things that we've got to be able to continue to clean up from a fundamental standpoint and man coverage that he did in certain plays, but ultimately a heck of a play by their team, not taking anything away from it, but certainly he and us would love to have that last touchdown back.
Kind of on top of that, I mean, Keon Sabb and Devonta Smith haven't left the field much for you guys, and I'm curious, with what Bray did, with what King did, and some of the other guys that you mentioned, like what did you learn about your DB depth after the Tennessee game, and kind of how much it is, how little, things like that?
Well, I think there's always a next man up mentality. Those guys have to be ready at a moment's notice. You talk about those things, you have a sense of urgency in practice that, the guys that are rolling with the twos have to know that at any given moment, right, they could step in and have major impact on a game. Certainly a game like this where you had, a number of DBs that went down, you can point to this to say, hey, this is why it's so critical, right, that you have the same level of urgency that the guy that may be going out with the starting defense, because at any given moment, right, you're going to come in and have a tremendous impact on the game one way or another, whether you're prepared for it or not. And so certainly I think our young guys, they seem to do that in practice. They have an urgency to be able to get in. Bray Hubbard was a great example of that, goes about his business workmanlike every single day, and really prepares with an expectation that he's going to go in, and he produced at a really high level. But it's certainly an opportunity for us to be able to point towards how critical practice habits have to show up one way or another in games.
How would you describe what happened on that illegal substitution penalty where it looked like Moling was pushed King and then he went down?
Yeah, I mean, guys, obviously we tell guys if you're injured or if you're hurt or if you're, pulling up with a cramp, you got to go down in that situation. We're not able to substitute someone when a team is going fast. And so if you're injured, the protocol there is for a guy to go down. And I think, we were able, our training room does a tremendous job, and we got a guy back after however long it was.
Any other questions for Coach? Finish up with Katie here on the left.
Kalen talked after the game, about this team hasn't or struggled to play complete football on both sides of the ball. When the offense is doing well, the defense maybe isn't, and vice versa. And I know you're just in charge of one side of the ball, but maybe why do you think that is, and how can that change that this team can play complete football?
That's a great question. I mean, those are the things that's the secret sauce, right? How do we play team football, offense, defense, special teams collectively together to maximize our opportunity to win? You're going to have moments, right, where one side of the ball versus another may be executing better on any given moment. The most ideal thing is that we're all hitting on all cylinders, for 4 quarters, but that rarely happens in a game or in a season. I think as you look at this, there are no excuses, right? The standard is the standard, and you have to find a way to win, and you have to find a way to play complementary football across the board. But these are some of the growing pains that we're going to deal with and continue to work through as a football team. But I think there's a ton of confidence in our players and coaches, and knowing that we are taking steps in a direction to be able to have great team chemistry. I think Kalen does a tremendous job with the culture of our program, the buy-in from our players. And when you have adverse situations like this, it's always about how you respond. And I think our guys have done a really good job in terms of their response, talking to them yesterday, and then certainly the demeanor that they have this morning. All right, thanks, guys. Roll Tide.
All right, there you go. Kane Womack up first. Nick Sheridan will come here in a second. Clint, were you surprised at all that he said what he said about the fake injury?
Yeah, I mean, to an extent, I don't think anyone's going to admit to that. So maybe we shouldn't be surprised. But yeah, I was very shocked. Just from the simple fact of, I mean, it was pretty blatant what had happened. And just the fact that he highlighted that they have a great training staff and they were able to get him back out there, as quickly as they did. It's like, well, they didn't have to do a whole lot. Just give him a squirt of water and get him back out there.
I guess there could be a fine or something, right? Can you get fined if? Yeah, I'm sure there's a reason why. But that to me was comical. But in that way where it was like, why'd you miss school? Oh, I was there.
I mean,
attendance, didn't see you. Really, you're at the beach.
But the bottom line is that they should have never been put in that position. And I'll continue to reiterate that. I don't think they handled it well. I don't think that was the thing to do. But I mean, at the same time, what do you do? Do you burn a timeout and then chew the ref out, or do you just accept the fact that you're about to be playing with 9 on the field, and if they score a touchdown there, that's because it's because the ref screwed up, but that doesn't matter because you still just give up a touchdown. They don't go back and correct that. So, I mean, if anyone's questioning and thinking it's absurd, which I agree that it's absurd, but at the same time, when you ask yourself, what would you have done differently? If someone can give me a good answer, then I'll accept it, but I really don't know what I would have done in that situation either.
Right. And basically you feel like the officials didn't give Alabama a chance to sub. You agree with Kalen DeBoer.
Absolutely.
And, I'm noticing a lot more of that. And I think that that's something that DeBoer can't do anything about. But I feel like when you're a legend like Nick Saban, the officials are paying closer attention to make sure they get things right because, they don't want to be getting yelled at by Nick Saban. It just feels like there's been a lot more of that this year that's out of our control, or maybe we just are paying closer attention to it. But between that and watching Ryan Williams get, grabbed every single play while he's running down the field and no penalties being called, it gets pretty frustrating.
And offsides penalties, that aren't called penalties. When you've got the rules expert coming on and multiple, I'm not talking once, like 3 or 4 times, he's like, yeah, they missed that. I don't know that I've ever seen that work in one direction. And I'm not saying there was anything nefarious going on at all. I'm not saying that they were out to get Alabama or anything like that. It's just, you talk about bad luck. I mean, when you get the rules expert on and he's constantly saying, yeah, they botched that one. That one was pretty bad. I mean, you get one of those every once in a while where you might get 2 in a game, but getting up there in 3 and 4, that's unfortunate, and it's a lot to overcome, but that doesn't make it, we're not going to make excuses for it.
No, look, they got to be able to snap and block and complete passes. And you talked about Milroe, and, Stacy wrote something about it on covercrimson.com. You guys can check it out. Milroe's 64% since the Georgia game. I think you talked about this, but three touchdowns, 5 interceptions, and only 57 yards on 39 rushing attempts. That's not Milroe to me. And that's just like mind-boggling when you talk about what he was doing before that and the success that he has on the football field. That's why I said I feel like something's just not right. I don't think all of a sudden he forgot how to throw a run. I think he's hurt and he's trying to play through it, and it's affecting his play, and we'll find out now.
Yeah, hey, Coach, just how would you assess Jalen's play in this last game, and what do you do to kind of keep his confidence up after the last couple of weeks?
Well, I think, none of us coached or played well enough in the game Saturday, and that starts with me. Our ability to execute consistently and take advantage of the opportunities that we were presented. We obviously fell short in that, in those spots, and it's all of us. We're all involved in that. And Jalen's an extremely confident player. I have no concerns about that at all. His preparation creates that confidence for him, and I know he'll get back to work this week, just like the rest of our players will.
On Saturday when y'all were checking plays at the line of scrimmage, instead of Jalen just yelling from the shotgun. We saw him walking straight to both tackles and putting the call right in the ear hole. Was that effective, or were there a lot of communication issues despite that?
Well, in those environments, you don't really have a choice on how you have to communicate relative to the proximity to one another. You have to get that close to be able to talk. And I would say that we had some communication issues. There's no doubt about it, particularly early in the game. I thought as the game went on, our guys settled down and adjusted to the crowd. But that's something that, moving forward, we'll have to be cleaner and better when we get back into those environments.
How much of the run game struggles on Saturday were like y'all sort of self-inflicted, or was it something Tennessee was doing?
Well, I mean, I want to give credit to our opponent, on some of the things that they did, but I thought there were some execution issues by all parties, whether it was decision making in read plays, whether it was simple fundamentals or technique. I thought there were some effective runs in the game where guys did a nice job and we were headed up correctly, and the runners did a nice job of running hard and physical, but it wasn't consistent enough. And certainly that starts with me, and our ability to put them in the best positions to be successful and ask them to do the things that they can do well. And there's lots of those things, and we just got to make sure that we tighten that up and do better, because I do think this is a group that can run the ball effectively. And we got to make sure that we improve in that area and give them enough shots at it to show what they're capable of. And so we're looking at that first as a staff. And then certainly, identifying the things that we need to improve on, because that's an area where I think we can do a lot better than what we've done. And I know we have the players to do it. I know we have the scheme to do it. I know we have the staff to do it. And so that certainly will be a point of emphasis for us this week for sure.
The defense forced 3 turnovers on Saturday, and then y'all weren't able to score after any of them. Just kind of what was maybe the teaching point of that, of being able to take advantage of those opportunities the defense sets up for you?
Just that, that you have to take advantage of those opportunities in those games against the teams that you're playing against, and credit our defense for doing that. And to this point, in the games where we've played the best collectively as a team, we've done that. Our defense has created turnovers and we've been able to, put points on the board off of those. And unfortunately for us this past week, we didn't do that. And that was disappointing because I certainly felt like there was opportunities in the game for us to capitalize on those, and we didn't do it. And so, it goes back to execution, the calls that you make, obviously, you always reflect on that and what you could have done different. But certainly that was a factor in the game, and that was disappointing. We weren't able to capitalize in those moments.
We talk about the struggles and the inconsistencies in the running game. How much does that influence your play calling when you get in the red zone in the shorter field?
I guess you're always trying to make decisions that you feel help your team win, and that's a moving target as the game is progressing. I think some of the things that occurred in the game on Saturday, particularly early in the game, is when we were getting behind the chains in 2nd and long situations or 3rd and long. We were in a lot of those in the game. That makes it harder to, be committed to running the ball when you're at 2nd and long situations. And so, you're just always trying to identify what's going on in the game. How are our players seeing it? What is the opponent trying to do? And how can we best attack them based on what the situation that, occurs? But certainly controlling the line of scrimmage and running the football, particularly when you're on the road, is important. And, like I said, we have the players to do it, and we have the staff to do it, and we have the schemes to do it. And so that'll certainly be an emphasis for us moving forward.
Being on the left side, front row, Colin.
Hey, Nick, after the game Saturday, it seemed like Jalen Milroe, consistently, he's like, took responsibility for the offensive struggles just over and over. I'm curious, like, what is your message to him post game to make sure he, the weight isn't, impactful of, the responsibility of that weight, like, isn't impactful for weeks to come, and like that he, moves on and, in terms of being a leader and kind of the continuation of what you guys want to do offensively. And that he doesn't
yeah, I think Jalen's made some incredible plays for us this year. I don't think there's any doubt about it. And certainly, some of the success that we've had offensively, he's been right at the forefront of it. And so he knows that, and certainly, when you come up short, there's always plays that you would like back. There's always moments, coaches and players. And that's just not the quarterback. That's everybody. And so, that's part of competition. We know we can play better. We have to play better. We have to coach better, and so I think everybody, that competes at a high level understands what that looks like and how to respond and how to, get up off the mat and get back to work and get prepared and ready to go play in the next, game. And so that's no different for coaches, players, everybody. When you fall short and you don't do as well as you'd like and as what you expect to and what the standard is, you got to get up off the ground and keep swinging and keep working and have confidence in what you've done. I think that's the biggest message to the guys is that we have seen it. It's not like this is something you're chasing that you haven't done or shown. And so that's the message, not just to Jalen, but to the rest of the group is let's get back to playing the type of football we know we're capable of playing. And, that's our task this week.
Hey, Nick, Coach Kane obviously has a lot of familiarity with Corey Batoon over at Missouri. Has he kind of talked with you about what they can do and just what have you noticed in general from their defense on film?
Yeah, certainly, any type of crossover experiences or relationships that you have amongst staff, you always have questions. I would say what great coaches and Coach Batoon is the same is, you try to adjust what you do based on the personnel that you have. And so there's always core fundamentals and principles that, both Kane and Coach, Batoon share, but each group's a little bit different. Each year is a little bit different. And, I think the way that they play, I think the effort, the toughness, the physicality, the disruption of the football, I think those are the things that you see aside from maybe some similarities schematically, because I think great coaches like the ones we're going against this week, they just adjust to who they have and what their players do best. And so year to year, that may look different, but I think the style of play and how they play, those are the things that show up, both with, Coach Womack and Coach Batoon.
Time for 3 more questions, starting on back on the left.
Moving forward, how do you plan to incorporate veteran receivers like Kendrick Law and Kobe Prentice when playing seasoned defenses?
Well, we're always looking at utilizing all of the personnel that we have and how we can best put our players in a position to be successful. That's for every position, who can give us the best chance to win, who practices the best. I think both those guys are really talented players, and I know they're going to have big moments for us here down the stretch. And so, I think not just those two in particular, but all the guys, we need everybody, to continue to progress, continue to learn, continue to grow, so that we can utilize them all, here down the stretch.
On Jalen's 4th down sneak towards the end of the first half, the TV broadcast showed Ryan and Jeremy pretending to shoot a basketball on the outside of the field. Is that part of the design of the play or just something spontaneous?
Yeah, you're talking about the quarterback sneak. Yeah, there's nothing on the field that we're not coaching. So that's how I answer that.
The last few weeks, Milroe's been hasn't been nearly as effective as a runner. I know you've talked about execution, but what have opposing defenses kind of done to limit his effectiveness in that way?
I think that, there were some effective runs. There's obviously some read elements of some of those runs, where we need to make sure we make the right reads all the time. I think the negative yardage plays and going backwards, that's really what's hurt us, as far as the production in that standpoint. And some of that has been in the past game. And so just eliminating those, I think, will help us obviously stay ahead of the change, give more at bats as far as just opportunities for that. And you're trying to find new ways and creative ways for all your players. Obviously you get this far into the season, there's certain things that you have tendencies on, there's certain schemes or sets that you've run plays at before, and you're trying to counter that with other types of schemes. So, I think we got to eliminate the negative plays. We got to, that would be the biggest thing that I would say is, when we have negative yardage plays, it's hard for anybody to overcome that. And so that certainly skews some of the stats that way. And that's what we'll be focusing on. Okay. Thanks.
All right. So there you go. Nick Sheridan asked about the basketball shot on the 4th down. He said that they coach everything that we saw. They coach. Can you imagine that practice?
My guess, and this is purely a guess, and it doesn't, this isn't going to be a good enough answer for a lot of people, but it is it could simply be a distraction. Quarterback sneak. You're wanting to take as many eyes off of, that congestion. Where you're trying to actually get the first down. So if you do something crazy, jump or whatever, then maybe you draw some eyes from a defender, and he's the one that was supposed to be trying to make the stop or something. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
you do whatever you can to be a distraction in that moment, because you're out there. You have no role. The play is not going to involve you whatsoever. So, you do something crazy to attract attention. I think that's what they're doing. Is it a bad look? Yeah, probably. And I will say that the reason Sheridan probably doesn't know what they were talking about is he doesn't know what they do. Like, he just says, hey, do whatever you can to be distracting out there. And he didn't know that they did a jump shot or whatever. So that would be my guess.
All right, here's Coach DeBoer.
All right. Good morning. We've had two losses now, and trying to find those complete games and as a team. And there's been times throughout the season where we've played very complimentary. It might be takeaways and scoring. It might be one team needs a little pick me up, the other comes through. But when the losses happen, those things get amplified. You certainly really look into that more. We got to play better as a team. It's what great teams do. And so we haven't been our best in those two games in particular. And I know there's other times we can always look and know we got to improve, but can't have the mistakes, can't have the penalties, got to have better execution, all those things that put you behind the eight ball, throughout the course of the game. And here in the SEC, there's such a fine line, obviously, between winning and losing, and that's how you get beat. And so, that's on all of us. It starts with me just continuing to set the standard, that will lead to high performance. And I know that it just comes down to competing, being solution oriented every day, bringing everything you have to the football team. I'm confident in a group of guys that want to be great. There's no doubt about it. I can see in their response each and every day, just showing up to work. And so, I have no doubt that that's going to continue to happen. We know that just being a championship football team is hard. We all signed up for it. We all want to continue to improve our awareness, our intensity. And that's not just intensity on the football field and all that. That's just everything we do. We know it takes everything we got. And, that's what we signed up for. So I think the biggest thing is the message has been over the weeks, not just this week or not just after Vanderbilt, but the weeks, all season long. The message is always going to be there's never going to be excuses. That's one thing that, only softens character. It lowers the standard, and that will never happen. And so, again, talk about being solution oriented, continue about moving forward, making sure you got the right people here. And I firmly believe that we have a lot of great people with a lot of great skill sets, whether it's players, staff, and that they're all working together. And so really, know that that's going to be the case. Kind of moving on to a couple other things, just with injuries, I'll give you an update. I know with Keon Sab, he does have a lower extremity injury. We're still gathering information here, but we do expect him to be down for a while, and so, that could be an extended amount of time, and we'll just continue to evaluate that. I know there's a lot of, I think, one position group in particular, just kind of put them all together. All the other DBs, I think, just look to see how they progress throughout the week. A lot of similarities between just kind of the level of the injuries that they all have, and right now I'd be expecting them all to be able to play on Saturday. So be ready to go. When it comes to Missouri, just Coach Drinkwitz, especially over the last 2 years, but I know it takes time for him to build to this, has done a great job. Great football coach, just as far as how he's developing guys and, bringing the right people into his program. Got some transfers that have added to, a solid group of returning starters, 17-3 over the last 2 years. Just a resilient group, won some close games. And so we got to another great task at hand, as they're always going to be in the SEC, and our guys are looking forward to the challenge. I know this week's going to be one where we get back to work and want to bring a homecoming win back home for all our fans, all our alumni.
Thank you, Coach. Let's start with Charlie Potter here on the right.
Yeah, Coach, just with Jalen, is he dealing with anything from an injury standpoint, maybe banged up a little bit? And if not, what do you do to kind of build his confidence up after the last 2 weeks?
Sure. Yeah, I think at this point in the year, I don't think there's many guys that play a lot of snaps who don't have something, and just working through it. But he's more than capable, and as he goes through the week, you're just ready to play on Saturday. So there's nothing that's going to be holding him back from going out there and being able to help us get a win. Confident of that.
Stay on the right side, Kirk. Kirk, right there.
Coach, I know the head coach is responsible for everything, but I wonder if there are some coaches who take exclusive responsibility for things like play calling, for instance, or substitutions or clock management. I wonder what sort of things you are, besides your veto power, anything that are exclusive to you.
Yeah, I think all those things you mentioned are part of the job responsibility and how I look at it, and take all those things seriously. And so every element of the program, it's always things that I'm going to discuss if it involves other people, which usually it does, and go to those people. Making sure our coaching staff is always aligned on the same page, whether it is the play calling, whether it is the situational piece, off the field, recruiting efforts, making sure everything's always aligned. And so, evaluating, I'll tell you this, a lot of times there's situations that do come up that really work out for you. And, you think about many times where, in the past with different teams and all of that, maybe it's not the decision you would have made as far as that particular call, but there's a lot of good calls that you can make that all work. And so is what happens is you got to make sure that the guys are prepared, that they're confident, and then going out and execute what it is that you've been working on. So, I feel full confidence in who we have, and my job is to continue to guide them, give them, my perspective, be there in the moment in the games, to continue to make sure we're sticking to the plan that we worked on, the plan that was created, the ones that the guys have practiced, and just making sure we're staying the course, in that moment, and then also staying the course as we continue to develop our players over the course of the years, and their careers.
To the chase, far left.
I wanted to ask you about the personal foul against Kendrick Law at the end of the game to set up the 4th and 22. What was I don't think you got asked about that on Saturday. What was your message to him after the game on that?
Yeah, I mean, well, the message continues to be right with the team. It's not just one. It's we gotta learn from those moments. Those moments are big, and our choices, our decisions, our words, our actions. I mean, all of those things. They have to be focused on what's best for our team. And obviously, in that moment, we're fighting to try to find a way to win, and it's a big moment. And so, we got to make sure we, of course, address them, but we got to, we can't continue to have the mistakes, and that those are in particular that we can control. Some things you just can't control, the things that happen to you, the way the ball bounces, and all of those things. So, I think just everything in general, it starts with our thoughts. We got to make sure other people's thoughts don't become ours. And we got to make sure that, if someone's talking to us, we gotta learn to walk the other way, and, be a more emotionally disciplined in every facet, not just the high aggression type things, but also just when, the momentum swings and things like that happen in a game, be able to trust in your preparation, trust in what you're doing. But yeah, we got to be better. We got to be better there. And obviously that's an important part of what great teams do, is be great in those times.
Second row left, Chloe.
Obviously, if Keon's going to be out for any time, you're going to need Bray Hubbard to step up. Just what have you seen from him, and how much has he grown in this season?
Yeah, Bray's been working hard for this opportunity, and You know, he worked he not just last week, but every week he's worked to be ready, and we had no doubt that he would be come Saturday when he was called upon, and he'll go out there again this week. And you know, our team really believes in him. He does a lot of things on special teams, and you can see it every day in practice. And so um, he's been around the program, and now you know this is that time, that next up, you know, next man up mentality. You know, that's what we talk about, and that's what it's got to be. And you know, I know again high level of want to that he has, and you know, I'm excited for his opportunity. You know, I love Keon to death, and Keon's he's a warrior, man. There's more things I want to say about Keon and what he did to go out there and try to help our football team. But there's you know, next man up mentality, and I'm excited for you know the opportunity that Bray has in front of him.
Jump right across the aisle here to Matt.
What needs to happen offensively to better capitalize on some of those defensive takeaways?
Yeah, you know, it's different, I think, each week, right? We talk about matchups and how they present themselves, but a lot of the things were just, you know, drive stalling because we were um, I don't want to say it's always shooting yourself in the foot, but we weren't executing, or something it would happen, and a lot of times it was right, false starts or whatever it might be. We just wasted plays and got ourselves behind the chains. Weren't able to have our full offense available on every play, and you know, we were good at that early in the season, and we got to get back to you know, taking advantage of those opportunities, playing off the defense, and those momentum swings, you know, keeping them on our side when those times come. So credit the defense. Now a couple weeks in a row, they've got the ball loose, or they've made some interceptions. And again, we got to play team football and make those opportunities really pay off.
Just to clarify, knee injuries in the secondary, does that include Xavier? Because I know we didn't see him for most of the game there.
Yeah, that'd be Xavier, Devontae. Is there anyone else you're wondering about? Red, yep. Red would be in that group as well.
That's Colin.
Hey, Kalen. I'm curious. Do you feel like there's still a learning curve in terms of Jalen Milroe and the rest of the offense, in terms of learning your offensive scheme, you know, adapting to what you expect out of them, or is it kind of?
Yeah, I'm just really, I mean, I'm pleased with a lot of the things that he's done and the way he's really wanted to learn the offense, our system. I think there's always a management of a game that goes between coaching staff and your quarterback, because he's the ultimate guy on the field that runs the show. And you know, just yeah, I think when you ask, is there a learning curve, or you know, I think there always is, and I think it continues. But obviously, we're halfway through the season, and we gotta make sure we continue to do things he's comfortable with, which I think he's comfortable with. You know, everything we ask him. You know, and you know, there's also then situations you get into that are in front of you. You know, how many times do you like to be in second longs, third and longs? You know, those are hard on any quarterback, no matter how good you are. And so, um, I know in Jalen's case, I know how he takes it all on himself, but there's other things that we all can do to help support him and keep him from being in those tough spots, especially when you have a, you know, a loud environment, and it's hard enough just to be able to communicate with your team, make those extra little checks or calls that need to be made. You know, that energy is a lot. We need to come through and help him out a little bit more too. And just like you'd guess, he can continue to improve well as well.
Couple more questions. Start with Katie. Second row there.
It's obviously been a small sample size overall with his number of attempts here at Alabama, but in his career, Graham's 1 for 4 on kicks of 50 yards or more. And we've seen Connor handle the kickoffs this year. Has there been any consideration of Connor maybe doing longer kicks, or is Graham kind of the guy y'all are sticking with for all field goals?
Yeah, I have a lot of confidence in Connor. I've really seen Connor in practice continue to really be more consistent than I remember in the spring. And, you know, I think we were right on the edge of what Graham was capable of. I felt that. Did think about, you know, just which way the kicks, even though there was just a small wind, looking for that little, but I knew it would be close. You go with your gut on those things, and obviously it came up just short, but I felt like he was on point. I felt like he put a good solid swing on it, and you know, we got a lot of confidence in both of those guys, to be honest with you.
Finish up, Jonathan, all the way to that.
Hey, Coach Kane was talking about in adverse times like this. He said you got to keep the main thing, focus on this Missouri game. As you get later in the season, things like standings, rankings, that kind of thing creeps in and maybe becomes a conversation. How do you do that? And how do you keep the guys focused on just what's ahead this week?
Yeah, I still feel like, really, or my experiences have been there's too much football left. And maybe the last week you try to give some perspective because there's so many things that can change between now and then. So that's really, as Kane, I guess, it said, that's really, where our focus is at, is just on this game, 1-0. I already heard in the locker room from our players. They understand the big picture is one thing. In order to make the big picture relevant, we have to take care of what's in front of us. And we got to continue to, do what championship teams do, build on championship caliber teams do, build on your belief, build on your, just intensity and everything that you do. And then just have some grit. I think if you look across the championships that have been won in this program, obviously I wasn't a part of them, but there's probably a lot of common things that I just mentioned that are right there. And I firmly believe that this team is capable of that. We just gotta jump over that line that is a fine line on the winning and losing and what it takes to be great. And again, we have the people here that are going to work hard to do everything they can within their means to make that happen. So I'm excited to get back to work. We knew this wasn't going to be easy. We knew this was winning a championship each and every year, especially in the SEC, is going to be hard. We knew there were going to be challenges along with transitions, all that. No excuses. We got to continue to move forward. We got to continue to build. And, that's what this week is all about, is taking that next step. You bet. Roll Tide.
All right, there you go. Coach DeBoer's press conference is over, Clint, and he kind of sounded like he sounded last week. He's trying to be positive. Seemed like it was a little bit faster this week. I think the coaches wanted to get off the stage. They asked some tough questions, but let's start right here with the injuries, because the injuries are starting to mount up for Alabama.
Yeah, especially in the secondary, which, you lose all the guys that you lost, 2 first-round talents, and Kool-Aid McKinstry and Tyrion Arnold. You lose Caleb Downs, who was also a first-round talent. You lose your other safety to the NFL and Jalen Key. You lose Christian Story. You lose Jake Pope. You lose Des Ricks. You lose Trey Amos. You lose all these different guys. I could keep going. But you lose all of that, and now you're talking about, Zabian Brown being banged up. You talk about Devontae Smith. Red Morgan was another one. He came in for Devontae Smith at that Husky position, and Smith, I only think, played 4 snaps. Zabian Brown, I think, played like 15. So they both went out fairly early. So you started seeing them work into that depth. And then by the end of the game, you had a 5'10 King Mack, who is a scrappy player. You love him to death. I think he's got a very bright future in Tuscaloosa, but he had kind of been playing multiple positions, really wasn't locked in anywhere, been playing the field safety, been playing Husky, and you've got him covering a big-bodied, 6'5" receiver, right there at the end of the game. And it's just because you're down to your third-string Husky, you were down to your backup safety, you were playing a bunch of true freshmen at corner. And so, yeah, I mean, this is why I say as the game continued, I think that Kane Womack overall, he's never going to go out there and say I'm happy with the defense performance, because ultimately it wasn't enough to get things done. And he even mentioned they had 11 game changers and their goal was 12. So in their minds, they kind of view it kind of fits perfectly, where they feel like they were just one more play, one more game changer short of really being able to help secure a victory, despite the fact that the offense was really struggling. So, I mean, he's not going to go out there and talk about how good, great, and wonderful the defense played, but just when I go back and watch, I think the game plan was solid. I thought guys were winning one-on-one matchups a lot against Tennessee's offensive line, He's 100% correct. A lot of Tennessee's rushing yards were on chunk plays. And, you need to limit those explosive plays. That's the part of it. But when you talk about the down in, down out stuff like, Sampson had been getting against other teams, I thought Alabama did a pretty good job of really limiting his success. It would be a 0-yard gain, a 2-yard gain, a 1-yard gain, and then he kind of would pop a pretty good one, and the averages look a lot better than it actually is. But from a percentage of how much you're successful against a guy on any given play, I mean, a lot more success than there wasn't. So, I mean, that I'm not trying to make excuses for anybody. That's just what happened. And when you talk about them getting exploited in the secondary kind of as the game progressed, and they were already exploitable before all the injuries and all the guys being banged up. I mean, Keon Sabb did a phenomenal job in coverage on Saturday, even though I think he entered the game not being 100%. And, continued to kind of go in and out of the lineup throughout the game. And then finally, he's dealing with, a lower body injury. So it's going to take a little time for him to get back onto the field. And that's unfortunate. But if you're Alabama, even though you never want to work into your depth because now you're only one more injury away from, being on a third string guy, at least you can feel confident knowing Bray Hubbard is doing some really good things as far as earning his playing time. And when he gets out there, he's making some plays. I don't think he's above making mistakes. He's still a guy who's young. He's still learning how to master the safety position. He played quarterback in high school, but I think he's come on really strong on that front. And I think he could be an impact player for Alabama. And then when Sabb, whenever he does get back, Alabama's now built in some more depth into their secondary.
One guy that he said, or I guess I interpreted it as he's not injured, is Jalen Milroe. So if he's not injured, kind of felt like maybe he is banged up. But with the quarterback, and I mean, look, you guys watch Elephant in the Room with Jake Coker. He said he had a separated shoulder for like 3 or 4 games, I think it was. The year they won in 2015, and they would never tell anybody that. They're not going to let you know that he can't throw the football. To me, Milroe's play is telling me that something's wrong. It's kind of hard to read in this press conference, but both coaches were kind of asked about that, and it just he said, well, he should be able to, should be able to go out there and do what he needs to do.
Well, and exactly, he said at this point, aren't many guys who don't have something that they're dealing with. But he said that Jalen's more than capable of going out there to get, them a win. He's fully confident that there's nothing holding him back to be able to go out there and execute and help Alabama get a win. And so, yeah, you would expect Milroe to be able to get the job done. Clearly, he was not able to get the job done against Tennessee. And that's that. Once again, I mean, these aren't really opinions, it's fact. And I don't think that things around him went great. But I think a lot of what made him dangerous is when you've got the rushing ability that he does, that you mask a lot of issues. That's kind of the point. If you have a poor offensive line and you have, you don't have receivers that can catch very well, and you have all these problems, having the +1 at the quarterback position where he can run the football, it helps your run game, or it should help your traditional run game, because that's someone else the defense has to account for running the football. B, you can get him out on the perimeter. He can, escape, maybe give his receiver some time to get open. If they're having trouble with that, he can take off and run and put straight on a defense that way. So, it doesn't matter if the offense around him is not playing great. Jalen Milroe should still be able to have success to some extent. If it was this easy to stop a dual threat quarterback of this caliber, there would be no good dual threat quarterbacks. Lamar Jackson would not be Lamar Jackson if you could stop him. If it was this easy to stop him, you got to do a lot and really commit a lot to stopping his legs. And that opens up so many opportunities for other things. I do think defenses are doing some of that, but I don't think it's to the extent where he should be having the limited rushing production. And I will say, I don't think it's coincidence how everybody keeps mentioning that, everybody's dealing with something right now. So obviously Milroe is dealing with something. He is not 100% healthy. Tyler Booker went out of his way to go back and clarify on that answer. And so, I do think that is at least worth mentioning, but I also just don't think he's in a great place. I don't think it's anything severe enough where it's holding back his ability to go out there and help Alabama win a football game. I think it's just poor play. And I think that he's got to get that fixed. I don't know what the problem is. I don't know if it's mental. I don't know, but the body language on the sidelines has not been great. He has not been producing on the field. He's been doing, he did some good things against South Carolina. He did some really good things against Vanderbilt. when you go and watch, I mean, there's just so little that I can point to and say that, you know what, Jalen Milroe made a play there. Not saying that he didn't have any, but just when you consider it to past performances, I understand it's a hostile environment. I understand it's a good defense, but you know, when you are a quarterback the caliber of Jalen Milroe, you should not be able to have that poor of a performance against, you know, really anybody. I don't care the circumstances.
And look, I'm hearing that he's pretty frustrated. Like, I mean, that's just the people that I know. And there's a lot of frustrated people right now, but that he's at the top of the list. And at least he's not out there embarrassing himself or getting penalties with, you know, the frustration that he's having. So who knows what the bottom line is. I saw a video where the Tennessee fans were heckling his parents. Am I surprised? Hey, would you guys do me a favor and give us a thumbs up? That's a way of saying Roll Tide. And for being here with us on Cover Crimson as we talk about the press conference. Thank you guys so much. We're brought to you by MyBookie. Use the promo code NEXTROUND to double your initial deposit. All these things really help this channel go. And then the other thing is covercrimson.com, where, you know, stuff like this, like Stacy Blackwood, who works with us, Milroe, since the Georgia game. This is his post in there. I'm going to read it to you guys because this is the kind of stuff we get into, man. 64. He's 59 of his last 59 of his last 92, 64%. 758 yards, 3 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, only 57 rushing yards on 39 attempts, 3 touchdowns, and Bama's 1 and 2. That's horrible. That's horrible. And I just feel like, and I saw somebody made that post, Ray Charles could see that he's not healthy. Something's wrong. I agree with that. They can say whatever they want. They also said that the guy who fell down was really injured or alluded to that, and the training staff got him back, and that they also coached the jump shot where 2 guys are acting like they're shooting baskets on a 4th down play, which I didn't even think Alabama got, to be honest with you. I was surprised they got the spot that they did. That was like a pretty lucky break there. Maybe if they weren't shooting baskets, they could be pushing the pile, right? So I'm a little disheartened with some of the things that I'm seeing going on right now. I'm going to be honest with you, man. I've been around this program for 30 some years. And I know you look at me, Clint, and you're like, how could you? Because you're only 30. I know. Listen, buddy, I'm seeing I'm not liking what I'm seeing. And I thought DeBoer kind of talked about being more disciplined, and they need to be more disciplined. They need to be more disciplined. It's getting to the point now where you know, we could turn into Auburn, you know, and all of a sudden we become that team that can't win, finds a way to lose every week. We're not there yet, but that felt like Mike Shula all over again. And for you Bama fans that weren't around for that, let me tell you in a word, sucked. It sucked. You know, he doesn't want to come back and say hi to everybody. He's pissed that Saban got hired over him. Hey, man. That's why, because your games looked like that. Okay, and I'm not trying to get fired up, but that's how it looked at Alabama. Every 4th quarter, you blow it. And so to win, you have to have discipline, not just in football, in business, in life. And they don't have it right now, Clint.
Yeah, and, you know, speaking on something that both Kalen DeBoer and Nick Sheridan mentioned, because I was already looking into this. I understand people want to see it, right? You know, when you hear coaches talking about some of these things, this is what we try to do over at Cover Crimson, is when they bring up some of this stuff, we try to go in, we will pull up a play that maybe Kane Womack's talking about, or we'll talk about some of the things, dive in, give you actually the numbers on a lot of what they're discussing. And this is one of them that was kind of the theme for today, because they're 100% right. And I want people to understand this. When they're talking about being behind the sticks, Nick Sheridan specifically talked about 2nd and long situations because they're not having enough success on 1st down. What is he talking about? I've already gone out and I've already scripted or written all this stuff out. 2nd and 11, 2nd and 16 after a false start, 3rd and 20, 2nd and 10, 3rd and 10, 2nd and 11, 2nd and 16 after a false start, 3rd and 16, 2nd and 10, 3rd and 10, 3rd and 12, 3rd and 16, 3rd and 14, 3rd and 19. 2nd and 13, 2nd and 10, 3rd and 10. I can keep going. It did get a little bit better throughout the game. but the drives where they were having success, I'm not saying that they didn't have any 3rd and longs or 2nd and longs that they had to convert, but I'm saying typically you saw more early down success, and that led. I mean, it's like I said yesterday, and I said it on the postgame show, but I'll say it here again today. You did something incredibly bold when you go into a hostile environment. The thing is why not stick your defense out there first if you win the toss,
right?
And the crowd's not going to be overly loud. You don't let them, they're fired up for the game to start. They're not, but they're not going to get super fired up with their offense out there. You let your defense go out there against their very struggling offense and go ahead and hand you momentum. Maybe they can create, a negative play. Maybe they generate one of those turnovers on, the first drive of the game, whatever. And now your offense is in really good position. Instead, they take the football, giving it to Tennessee at the start of the second half, and they go out there and it's false starts. It's this, that, or the other. Next thing you know, it's 3rd and 20. And then, you couldn't have had any of a worse start. You essentially completely wasted that drive. Now you're 3rd and 20, punting the football where Tennessee now gets it in plus territory. So you might as well chalk it up to they're getting the football to start both halves at that point. So, but that's not really, if you're going to do something bold like that, you got to be able to execute. But the coaches had confidence in their offense to be able to execute. And then they go out there and they can't handle the crowd noise. They can't handle this or that. So, you can't really blame it on the offensive game plan, because the offensive game plan never really had a chance from the start based off of what was happening as far as holdings, as far as pre-snap penalties, false starts, all those different things were just constantly putting them behind the sticks. Doesn't mean that the offensive coordinator is not above criticism, because I do think that he's not committing enough to the run game. And the one drive almost this entire season where he did, they actually had quite a bit of success. And all you would have needed to do is mix in some of that other stuff that you're doing so well with that. You can be run heavy on some drives, mix in some other, and I think you drive down the field and score, but they were too committed to the run on that one drive, and then they got back away from it. So I'm not saying Nick Sheridan's above criticism in this, but I am saying as far as the scheme, the game plan going in, there's not a whole lot that you can say about it, because we never got the chance to see really what Nick Sheridan's plan was going into this game.
Yeah, I loved it when they took the opening kickoff, like, we want the ball, and like they go out there and they suck. It's like, look, man, kick the ball off.
Yeah.
And what a just typical. I knew at that point, I was like, you got to be kidding me. Because if you come out and you got a game plan that you think is going to work, so much so that you're going to take yourself out of the advantage on the road, on top of it, it's great to have the ball in the second half because everybody's still in the bathrooms. It's not that loud at the beginning of the second half. I've been to games before the half starts and nobody even knows it,
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
Like we're running out like, we want the ball. And then we go out there and just stink again, And
the part that bothers me the most is just going in. You knew Neyland Stadium. You knew good Tennessee defense. You knew your offense had been struggling a little bit from the previous game. What else did you know? Tennessee's offense had really been struggling.
Yeah.
Nico will give you some gifts, which he did.
Mhm.
And I understand that Alabama's defense had not been playing well, but just given all the circumstances, everything, like if your defense was just absolutely terrible, Tennessee's offense was elite, your offense was completely elite, and they've been playing great football, I would understand the circumstances a little bit more. But just 9 out of 10 things pointed to you kicked that football off to start that game. And I think that they wanted to make a statement with their offense after the way it has struggled before. And if you can get points, now Tennessee's the one that's kind of chasing a little bit with that struggling offense. And that's good, great, and wonderful if it works. But the safer thing would have been, and this isn't a hindsight, when they kicked it off, I told everybody at the watch party that I was at, I think that was a mistake. I wouldn't have done that. And because what ended up happening is you go negative 10 yards and you punt in the football. And now that place is, the crowd's already into it. They're lively, and their offense has gotten a little bit of momentum because their defense just got a big stop deep in their, Alabama's own territory. Now they got a good field position to start. So it's just, I wouldn't have done that. I understand the logic behind it, but it was too big of a risk in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they weren't ready to take the ball. I mean, none of their plays worked. They've got to establish the run. You were talking about Dylan Sampson. They just keep feeding him the ball. And then eventually he started to wear down Bama's defense in that fourth quarter. I'm wondering why Bama can't run the ball. I really thought that this offensive line and these running backs were going to be able to do it. And now that Milroe can't run the ball, obviously, I mean, he's just they're tackling him every single time. I mean, when you look at his numbers, you just read them for you, they're terrible. So maybe you just go a little bit more conventional. I think about last year. I think he got hurt in a Kentucky game last year, and then they didn't run a lot. And it was at Texas A&M. He was a pocket passer, and he did a pretty good job of helping Alabama come from behind. Just didn't have that same magic. And the other thing is, like, I didn't feel like the team was ready or confident to go down the field in that 2-minute situation at the end of the game, and they didn't. They weren't ready, that is a big worry for me moving forward, because Saban's teams always had a chance to win. They didn't always win, but they always had a chance. These guys, did you really feel like, oh, they're going to go down the field and do something? It's like, what? It was awful.
Well, what's crazy about that, Mick, is that we had seen him do it in those situations, but I'm with you. It felt like Alabama's defense versus Vanderbilt, where as soon as they kicked that football off, I'm like, this game's over. Let's go ahead and get on the post-game show. I know I did. And granted, against Georgia, they needed it late and they got it late, made it look easy. When they needed some things, needed to respond to Vanderbilt, they made it look easy. And the defense immediately gave it up. But I'm saying when the offense needed to step up, they did. And they've done that when they needed to turn it on right before the end of the half against Wisconsin and really create some separation. When they needed to turn it on at the end of the fourth quarter against USF, they were doing all of those. But yet in this game, just watching how things had transpired, no, I didn't have confidence. I didn't think they were going to get this magical play from Jalen Milroe to Ryan Williams. First of all, to be quite honest with you, I thought there's no way that Jalen Milroe is going to get it to him if he's open.
Right.
He was off. And that's, I felt this way about other individual players. I know it seems like I'm stacking on Milroe this week, but honestly, I've done it in the past with other players when I feel like they've been responsible. And this week, it's not, to reiterate, it's not all Milroe's fault. A lot went wrong in this game, but there's no defending Milroe's performance. I did not have confidence in him in that moment to get the job done. That's unfortunate. Doesn't mean that I'm not going to have confidence in him moving forward, but he's got to get out of this rut that he's in right now.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. Look, it's not all Milroe's fault. I mean, there's a lot of blame to go around. It's like, besides Ryan Williams, I mean, who's ready to step up and look like a star receiver? Well, Bernard is, and I thought Law had a decent game until, he's out there getting into a fight at the end of the game. I talked to Jake Coker, and we're going to do an elephant in the room today on this channel. I talked to him on our radio show that we do Monday quarterback, WNSPN Mobile every Monday. I actually recorded on Sunday. And he's talking about when they would go down the field on drives, no one cared what the other team was saying. No one was trying to get into a fist fight with the other team. They might fight with each other, and they did. And he told me, there's some stories he told me off the record that we're not going to even bring up on the show, where these guys, they cared. And if you were the one that didn't care, you probably got your butt whooped. And I'm telling you, by your own team. Like when I'm telling you that there would have been somebody waiting for Law in the locker room, it's how they used to do it there. I'm not advocating that. I'm just telling you that's what happened. You cost us the game. We've worked all summer to get here. We've worked all year to get here. And then you can't just you calm down because somebody said something to you. It's like backyard stuff, man. Well, and in hockey, you can get away with that. It's they build that into the sport, right? But football's not hockey. You've got to be focused and disciplined. And that's what I keep going back to. And I like Coach DeBoer, but if this continues, he's not going to make it, Clint.
Well, I mean,
period.
What I think, and I really do believe, and I'm sure you could probably confirm this from just, who you talk to on a regular basis, but it's like, remember the Titans when Bertier knew that tight end wasn't blocking for red, and he literally says, hey, you're benched, you're out. The player held the other player accountable.
Yeah.
It's almost like it was some of those teams. It's almost like Nick Saban really didn't have to worry about benching a guy because the rest of the team wasn't letting him step on the field if he didn't have his mind right. If he wasn't ready to go to war, the other guys knew it and they would demand more. I think there's a lot of guys that are telling people, hey, we need more out of you. We need more out of you. We want more out of you. They're not demanding it though, because if you're demanding it and you're not getting it, I mean, I will say, I'm pretty sure Tim Smith is the one that recovered the fumble down the field that Dylan Sampson had. I think Malachi Moore was the one that forced it out. But what I will say, and he was in that position to recover it if he did. If he wasn't, it might have been someone else. But I know he was right there. When Dylan Sampson gets around him and he turns around, he wasn't able to get him. I don't know that I've ever seen an Alabama player loaf that bad. It was absolutely terrible. And I will just for, so other people can see it, I will go share the clip. I've already got it saved on my phone. But it was just, it was terrible effort. And I understand you're probably, you're a 300-pound guy. You're probably not catching Dylan Sampson once he got by you, but he was there close enough. And there's a lot of guys coming up, which is going to make Dylan Sampson have to kind of break down. You can catch from behind and get a good lick on him. He didn't know Malachi Moore was going to force that fumble, but just once he got beat, it's like, okay, I mean, I'll let somebody else go make this play. And, I'm 300 pounds, so I'm going to conserve my energy. And it's just, you can't have stuff like that. It was bad. I'm not saying you never saw that kind of thing, under Nick Saban's defenses or under Nick Saban, but I will say, I don't think that stuff was tolerated very much. I don't know if Tim Smith got in trouble, and I know I'm calling him out by name. I understand, telling somebody that they're a loafer. I've seen Tim Smith work his ass off. I don't think this is a consistent problem, but just, you can't have plays like that, because that one play could end up making the biggest difference in the game. And that's the sort of thing that you can't have. I'm seeing too much of that.
Well, is Malachi Moore going to go up to Law and hold him accountable?
I mean,
and that's the problem I had with the whole thing in the first place. It's not. I like Malachi. Like he said, another good game. Had an interception. I mean, he's out there playing. Everybody else seems to be hurt. But the problem is that if that's acceptable for your top guys, then what's it matter? I mean, is anybody going to come up to Law and say, "Hey, man, you turned a 7-yard, fourth down into a, 20-yard fourth down, and we just lost the game now because of that, or we're going to, it's a culture thing and it's not the players' fault to me. Look, it's the head coach's fault, because they're the ones that are in charge of this.
Well, I will say, and you're 100% correct. I mean, here's the problem with what Malachi did against Vanderbilt. What can you say to anybody else now?
That's what I mean.
You go to Kendrick Law and you say, "Hey, buddy, you need to get your act together. We ain't gonna have all these emotions out on the field. You caused us." He's like, "Are you telling me to keep my emotions in check?"
Right.
And that's now your captain that can't say nothing.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So yeah, like that's where it can really come back to bite you, is that when your captains are doing it, everybody's going to feel that they can do it. So yeah, that's a problem. And I will say, JTL, he just made a comment. I'll go ahead and put it up for you.
Throw it up.
Y'all Bama fans not listening to Mick and Clint. They're basically saying DeBoer was given the keys to a Ferrari. There should be no excuses. Let me put it to you this way. I've seen some people mention Kirby Smart in year one, at Georgia. Georgia had there were 50 and 17 in the 4 years prior to Kirby Smart getting there. They lost to a 6-7 Vanderbilt team. They lost to a 7-6 Kentucky team. They lost 45-14 to an eventual 5-7 Ole Miss team. They lost to a 4-loss Georgia Tech team. They beat Nichols by 2 points at home. They barely beat a 6-7 Louisiana Lafayette. They barely beat a 5-loss North Carolina, and they went to a bowl game and played what ended up being a 6-7 TCU team, and they won by 8 points. So, I mean, what Kalen DeBoer inherited probably was a little bit more talent than what Georgia had. It wasn't a huge gap, and Kirby Smart wasn't dealing with the transfer portal. He wasn't dealing with NIL. He wasn't dealing with all the stuff that Kalen DeBoer is currently dealing with. So, I understand that we have revisionist history. You take the 8-5 result. It was really bad for Georgia in year one under Kirby Smart, and right. Kirby Smart walked into a very successful situation. So you can talk about that all you want to, and I'm not saying that Kalen DeBoer got handed the keys to anything. He had talent, but it was a ton of turnover, a lot of new players as far as the transfer portal, completely new coaching staff, and it's taking some time. It's not good, though. This isn't excuses. I'm not trying to say, we need to forgive Kalen DeBoer, but what I am saying is to act like Kirby Smart didn't deal with something very similar and put a not great product on the field in year one is revisionist history if I've ever seen it.
Well, the secondary's, definitely banged up. But I'm not even talking about the wins and losses. I don't remember the Georgia season where Kirby got there. I know that it was going to be a culture shock because Mark Richt was definitely not Kirby Smart, who came from the Nick Saban school. And I'm not even saying that works anymore when you have the transfer portal and you have NIL, right? And basically what that means is it's really hard to go out there and lean on these guys the way that they need to be leaned on. Malachi Moore needed for somebody to come over with a pair of scissors and cut the C off of his chest after that game. If you're not going to kick, if you're not going to suspend him, that's fine. Just take the C off, and that sends a message to everybody else on the team that he's not our captain. We're not following this guy, because we don't act like that. But instead, we were like, hey, what? He might transfer. He might sit out, whatever. I don't know. But this is going to be an issue for all these teams until there's like some kind of like structure in place where you can't just decide that you're going to leave.
It's too easy.
Right. It's right. And that's the tough part about it. I don't mind DeBoer's style. I mean, but I've always said this about work environment. And you know this, Clint. I mean, I want to have fun. I want to be around people that want to have fun. I want to be around positive people and positive energy, but I better be kicking ass.
Right.
Because if I'm not kicking ass, you know this too, I'm not happy about it.
Yep.
I'm showing up and I'm telling you what I think, being real honest, being honest about myself, because you can't be your best if you're afraid to tell somebody what you really think. And you can't be your best if you don't have some kind of level of accountability for yourself and everyone that's there. It's fun when you're winning. And winning and kicking ass is fun. But what I'm seeing right now, I don't care about the DJs. I don't care about the ice cream truck. It doesn't matter to me. Hey, it's a great idea as long as people are there doing the things that they need to do. But when I see the get a 15-yard penalty at the end of the game, the Malachi Moore thing, other stuff that goes on, and you're losing, well, guess what? You got a problem. If you're going to fight, the center and the quarterback want to fight in a game that they're winning a national championship and they're blowing the other team off the field, it's a different story to me.
I completely agree with you, Mick. And that's what I don't know people who have fun losing. You can have a hell of a lot of fun if you're winning at whatever it is you're doing in life. If you're kicking ass, you're having fun most of the time. Not everybody who kicks ass has fun doing it. Some people, I mean, you can't. Some people can't find the fun in it, no matter what they're doing. They just want to win. They don't care how they don't find as much enjoyment out of the winning. Some people are just so terrified to lose that's what drives them. It's not really the will to win. It's the not wanting to lose. But it can when some of these things, I mean, going back to the 4th and 22, what they essentially did was they sacrificed 3 points for an extra offensive play, an extra attempt. And so they're in their minds, okay, if we punt it to them now, we have to stop them, but if we can get that stop, then now we're getting the football, and if we score a touchdown, we win. Mm-hmm. So you're sacrificing the potential to win for that extra 4th and 22 play. You're saying, okay, do I want the chance of us stopping them, and I want a 4th and 22 play, which is very low percentage, but at least it's one extra opportunity to make this thing happen. Some people might not agree with that. What's unfortunate is 4th and 7 was incredibly manageable. And that would have absolutely been a situation to do that in. 4th and 22 is so low percentage.
You got to punt.
Yeah, I think you do too. I mean, what you don't do is you don't do something that like they did, which is underneath the sticks, man. I know it's low percentage, but you just got to take a shot. You got to do something beyond the sticks, and you don't have too many plays drawn up to specifically get 22 yards. So by that point, you're essentially throwing it deep. But, guess what? I understand Jalen Miller was 0 of 5 on shot plays of 20 yards or more. And I understand that the pass protection had not held up great in the second half, but I still think that you've got to just go ahead and take that shot.
Super chats always get you right to the front, man. And we appreciate all you guys. We're brought to you by mybookie.ag. Promo code is next round. They'll double your initial deposit when you use that promo code. And we appreciate them for putting us on the air. Clint, you read that and then we'll just kind of react to it.
Yeah, it's all just satisfying and disappointing. The penalties and poor quarterback play crushed us. It falls on the players executing. The D showed promise, but this is a team game. Focus on the fourth quarter program. Brandon, I love it. I think fourth quarter program, being able to put your guys in a position where they're not just, it's not just to be in shape to where you can play all those plays. It's where you're not fatigued as much, where you can stay mentally focused. I've been in some games. I will say the hurry up offense was not nearly as big. When I played, back, in 2008, 2009, as it is now. And when we played hurry up offenses, I was a bigger guy at linebacker, and you get me running the sideline to sideline and you throwing tempo into it, I'm gonna wear out quick. And then that's where injuries happen, because you're not focused as much. It's, the production's going down, and when you're playing defense, you're reacting. It's all reaction. So you're already at a disadvantage. And so when you start getting a mental advantage to the offense as well, you get tore up real quick. And Alabama run into some depth issues on the back half on Saturday, and that played a part. I think fourth quarter program, getting guys in shape, I think that can only help things.
I felt like this, and I'm going to be honest with you guys. I can't remember if I said this on the post-game show or not. Tennessee wanted it more. They played like they wanted it more. They were ready to go in the fourth quarter. They weren't making the stupid mistakes at the end of the game. We should have blown them out. I mean, we had all those opportunities in the first half, and interception in the end zone, this and that, 3 and outs. Clint, you went through this, but it comes down to this to me, is that we just looked like the Shula teams. We just didn't want it enough in the fourth quarter. Discipline, all the stuff, the hand, right? Discipline, pride, and, all that stuff, enthusiasm, all that stuff matters. I didn't feel like, it felt like to me, like maybe we might get lucky and somebody accidentally makes a play. And I hope I hope I'm wrong.
I will say that this has been brought up in previous games. And I think to an extent, especially offensively, this was the case. It was a lot of guys standing around waiting for someone else to do it.
That's right.
Jalen Milroe has been that guy. We can't deny that. He's made some plays. He's put the team on his back. He's done some Superman-esque stuff in some of these games, or maybe not for the entire game, like against Georgia. But he's done it for halves. He's done it for games. And, Ron Williams is another guy, and he's the youngest player on the team. And yet he's been one of those guys who's like, hey, I'll go out there and make a play. The play's already been made in his mind. He just got to go out there and do it, because he's already standing in the end zone. And I think that is such a winning mentality. He envisions it, and he goes out there and he executes it. And it seems to me like he has an unwavering belief in himself to go get that done. I think you need more of that, though, because despite the fact that he does have that belief, that doesn't mean that he can always be the one to pull it off for you. It doesn't mean that Milroe is always the one that can pull it off for you. And especially when Milroe is dealing with whatever it is that he's dealing with, and he's really not in that headspace. You can tell he was not the guy going out there thinking, I'm going to be the one to go out here and make this play. Mm-hmm. I'm sure he wanted to make the play, but I don't think he was overly confident in himself to go out there and do it. And so you've got to have somebody else. And that's not, you don't have to be touching the football. It could be your block. If you're Caden Proctor, it's going out there, I'm going to mow about 2 guys down on this off tackle run to the left. And Jam Miller is going to have the easiest run to the end zone he's ever had in his life. It's that kind of mentality. I don't think you're getting that. And I know I mentioned Caden Proctor. I'm just using him as an example. This could be anybody on the field. I just don't think you're seeing that quite enough. You don't have enough of that right now.
Look, I saw somebody in here and they were like, Bama sucks. I'm glad, here, heat wave. Look, man, bad news for you is we're not that far off, brother. We're so used to beating you guys up that there's this time right now where it's like, we look like you now. And that's what scares us, because if you're Tennessee or Georgia or Auburn or whoever you pull for, this is what you're used to year after year. Us losing in the fourth quarter is something that we're just not accustomed to. And we're hoping that they get it figured out. And that's what we're here. We're not saying that we're going to turn into the next Auburn here. We're saying that it's here. They've got to hit a switch and figure it out. And the bad news is for you is that Alabama is still in the mix. And we got to remember that when they started the college football playoff, peeps, they got rid of the regular season being the playoff. And let me clarify with that. The regular season in college football up until this year has always been the playoff. Every game matters because you just didn't have that many spots. And if you lost, some years you were out, one loss. Some years, very, very rare, 2 losses. Now 2 losses. Look, if you're Alabama, you beat Missouri and they're ranked. You take care of LSU, they're ranked on the road. You got to go to Oklahoma and beat them. You beat Auburn. There's a great chance you're going to be in the playoffs. And that is coming into this game with the worst ranking since 2010, which to me is the most disappointing Alabama team that I can remember. That was really bad. And it felt a lot like this. Felt like there was a lot of entitlement floating around on that team. And that's what they're going to have to figure out. Saban did it. He won in 2009. And then all of a sudden, 2010, one of the most talented teams, and they're ranked really low. But I was at their bowl game, and you could tell the way they played in that bowl game that things were going to be different, right? Alabama's got to do that same exact thing now and figure it out. And I think they can. But I'll tell you this, Clint, the one thing that I did sense from the coaches today is I sensed that there's some concern there, and there's a sense of urgency that I got from them.
Yeah, I got that too. And they're certainly, they're not settling here. They're not, it is what it is. It can be frustrating when you're watching a duck on water. And I've made this analogy before, but because you think you need to be freaking out about this more. I'm freaking out sitting at home watching this. You need to be more upset, and you're not. That's just some people's personalities. And granted, you might disagree with that. You might think someone, Kalen DeBoer needs to go break one off in somebody's ass. I get it. I mean, every coach I ever played for would break one off. I'll tell you that. And they didn't mind making you feel bad about it. And so that's what I'm used to. I'm used to seeing that from Nick Saban. Granted, when things are going bad, I've also said this, you didn't see him breaking one off in people as much as you think. A lot of times he was studying and analyzing, trying to figure out how do we fix this. So he was actually calm when things weren't going well. You're up 42-14 on Notre Dame, and that's when he's fired up and getting on somebody, or it's, you're up on Western Kentucky a bunch or whatever. You'd see him explode on guys when they're in full control. But I think Kalen DeBoer does not go about his business that way. I do think you need a little bit of that in the building, and I think Womack's got a little bit of that, but he doesn't really show it too much. I think the entire coaching staff is kind of on the same page as far as how, outside of Jamarcus Shepard, he'll lose it on you on the sidelines. Those receivers are kind of, and I think there's a reason that the receivers, for the most part, has been one of the better position groups. Injuries and stuff have played a part and all that. But anyways, I do think that you want it to look a certain way. It's not, that doesn't mean that they don't care and that they're not trying to get this stuff fixed. I just think he does it his way. He has done it his way everywhere he's been. The SEC is a different beast. I understand that, but it's going to take time for guys to even get used to, coach it and yelling no more. He didn't losing it on us like he used to because it's a different coach. And so you kind of don't know how to handle some of this stuff. So yeah, that plays a part.
Look, I think this is a great comment, and I'm going to tell you what it reminded me of. But it seemed like Jalen was going to throw the ball to Williams before every play started. I felt the same exact way. There were seasons at Alabama where you'd watch the offense, and you knew that the ball was going to go to the same guy every single play. And I'm talking about Shula games. When you had Amari Cooper or Smitty. They got the ball a lot, but it didn't feel like this. It just felt like Shula all over again. Telegraphed. Hey, Ryan Williams going to get it.
Well, I'll say this. I do feel like that Some of it is an effort to get Ron Williams the football by the coaching staff. This is the best playmaker that you have, outside of when Jalen Milroe's on his game, easily the biggest playmaker you have on this offense. And I always thought it was funny when Nick Saban was talking about, oh, you're not, this guy hadn't been getting this many targets. Are you going to do something to change that? And he acted like that was the dumbest question ever asked. And he was like, pretty much was saying, who gets targets is all dependent on what the defense gives you. And I'm like, I'm watching them like, that is not true. And you and I both know it, because if it was based off of what the defense was giving you, Julio Jones would have saw about 2 targets a year, because there was no way the defense was giving you Julio Jones. Some of it's scheming and getting guys open, but some of it is, hey, this guy's our playmaker. We need to feed him the football. When Kalen DeBoer was asked about it, he did mention some of it is just what the defense gives you. And that's what I think is happening with Ron Williams. Everybody thinks that they're doing a ton to take him away. They're doing some things in certain moments, but it's not as universal across an entire game as you would think. And so, part of it is them making an effort to get him the football more, and plays are designed to go to him. But then also it's, Jalen Milroe working through his progressions, first read, second read, third read. Sometimes it's Williams as the second, sometimes it's him as the third. What I will say, kind of the problem and why it looked force-fed, at least in my mind, and I'm going back to confirm this, but it felt like that he was jumping too quickly. It's like he wanted to get to Williams. And so he's going one. If he wasn't just wide open, going to 2, if Williams is 2, he's going to him. Sometimes when he was open, a lot of times when he's open, he's a good player. He gets open a lot. But, sometimes it's just he wanted to get the football to Williams, and it's like, hey, just let it go more natural. Go to 1 like you're supposed to. Make sure he's not open before you go to 2. And so I think that's kind of why it felt, 9 targets in a quarter is absurd. Only got 18 in the entire game, so 9 over the final 3 quarters. But, when you finish with 18 targets, that is an absurd number. And I think you do need to spread the football out a little bit more.
Mm-hmm. The Missouri game is going to be tough, and then Bama's getting an off week, and they need it, man. They need it. They need to get healthy. Sherry, great to see you on here. It's great to see all you guys on here, by the way. And I recognize a lot of you guys from just hanging out with us, calling on the post-game show, commenting and all that. And we cannot tell you enough how much we appreciate you. Really. And it does feel kind of like a family at this point. So Roll Tide to all you guys. Please hit the thumbs up button. Subscribe to the channel if you're not already part of that. And know that covercrimson.com until Sunday, you can try it out for $1. So take advantage of that. And we'd love to see you there. But Sherry says, love the show, guys. I'm still staying positive, even though the future looks bleak. I hope others feel the same way. I think, look, I'm staying positive too. I'm just saying a second ago, like it sucks that it doesn't look like it did with Saban, but last year it felt like we were going to go this direction, and somehow they got it turned around. And I think that there's still that chance this year. Something's got to click, though. DeBoer knows how to win games. He stumbled a little bit when he was at Washington, but he got it figured out. The players know how to win games. They've done it before. I'm not sure what the magic potion is, but sometimes it takes 1 or 2 plays. Sometimes it takes someone standing up in the locker room and saying, hey, I'm not going to take this anymore. Or in football, it may be when that guy gets the 15-yard penalty, somebody goes over and gets into a fist fight with them, and they have to break it up. And it sends the message to everybody that we're not going to tolerate this. Sometimes it's kicking somebody off the team. Sometimes it's not. I don't know. But there's this. Something's got to happen for these guys to gel and start playing the type of football that they're capable of playing, because there's a lot of talent on this team.
I think the people who play for others, when you have enough of those, I think that's an infectious mentality. Because, like to me, Will Anderson, I understand that Alabama was having some of these problems when Will Anderson was a part of the team. But what I will say is he always felt like a guy who, if they needed to play 3-tech over a guard, when that's just not him, he can win that way. He did some good things on that front. But that's just, they were and they did it so they could get Chris Braswell and Dallas Turner all on the field together with him. or create mismatches and stuff. But he was willing to do all of it. He was willing to go out there and play in the bowl game when he didn't have to. There was nothing for him to go play for in the Sugar Bowl. And I understand he was on limited reps, but I guarantee you that those limited reps were because Nick Saban said, we do want you to be a part of this, but we also want to protect you as much as we can. We appreciate you being here, but we're going to kind of limit your reps and make sure you get to the NFL draft healthy. But when you've got enough of those guys, it's like that guy's winning. He's one of the best players in all of college football. Offense, defense, doesn't matter. And he's willing to sacrifice for us. That makes you, who am I to be selfish when you're watching that? And so when I say, if you can get enough of those guys and they're the right guys, the Julio Joneses of the world, did he ever complain about not getting catches or targets? Best player on the field every time you stepped on it. Offense, defense did not matter. He was the best player standing on a field of 22 guys, regardless of when his entire career from his freshman year to his junior year. But he never demanded. He never was dramatic about it. He got what he got and he made the most of it. When you're watching him behave that way, if you're a receiver, how can you go out there and say, well, I want targets? You better be feeding me.
Right.
I only got 2 last game. So, I mean, the more of those types of guys that you can get, the better off you're going to be. I don't think Alabama has a bunch of those right now. And, I think that's something it's with the transition and stuff. It might take them a little time to find it, but I don't think there's any reason to think that the future is I think it's on a downward spiral, and it was on a downward spiral regardless because of where college football is heading. And Nick Saban knew that. He was dealing with it. He was trying to overcome a lot of it. But just, to think that it's going to return to the early Saban days, just people need to get that out of their head. That's gone. That's gone for everybody. Kirby's not ever getting the Saban days from, back then either. I promise you he's not. So, but I have full confidence that they will continue to keep this program in a position where it's one of the best programs in college football.
Yeah. Look, I'm with you on that too. They still have the #1 recruiting class. And that was a question that we were asked at the beginning and you talked about it. And I said, look, Auburn's had, you talk about an embarrassing season. We're talking about a couple guys who let their emotions get the better of them that need to grow up a little bit and maybe be a little bit more leaders, but they're good kids and they're going to be all right. I'll say this, and we've been critical of Malachi. He's actually been really good.
Really good.
Thought he had one of his best game of the season last time. And I appreciate that. And whether, I don't care what anyone says, him telling Damani Jackson to get the ball out of the end zone to me was save the game, because I am not 100% sure that these buffoon officials would not have called that a safety. So by not putting that in their hands, we won the game. And I thought that was a great leadership play right there. Okay. Clint, they're like, wow, maybe have it at the 1. They'll find a way.
But you know what? Now we've learned, if that does ever happen, just throw all your bottles onto the field and let the refs know that you're pissed and they'll overturn a call.
I saw that. We were doing the post-game show and I saw that. I was like, what the hell's going on here? And then to think that like some of their calls are so bad, but what you guys got to remember, and I did talk about this post-game show, is that these guys they're not like the NFL where they just officiate all the time. They're not like going back and watching videos of them like being out of position or making the wrong call or whatever. They're part-time employees. And there's so much money wrapped up in this right now. And you can gamble and do all these other things. And I love the fact that you can go to mybookie.ag and put some money down. I think that's fine. But what I worry about is when you got these guys that are supposed to be officiating and they're like guys that are like working at real estate or insurance or, something else, like a boat captain. And then all of a sudden they show up and they're officiating these games. Some of these calls, and Alabama did not lose this game because of the officiating. They did last time. There. And that's a shame. But this time this game was well in hand. Tennessee had a lot of penalties too. The bad spot on the ball where they're doing the jump shot and Milroe did not get the first down, but they gave it to him. I mean, let's be honest here, man. He didn't get it, but if they gave it to him, so he got it, right? they need to go out and spend the money. Maybe it's just the SEC where you go out and you train your officials, you take care of them. You know, maybe instead of, you know, using this billions of dollars to send the Bama women's basketball team around to be in, you know, the middle of the pack and not have a chance to win a championship and play in front of nobody, you invest the money where the people's interest is and where it's coming from, and you go back to football, and every school does that, and all of a sudden now you have like people that are actually trained and working on that and making enough money where, you know what, maybe they don't feel like, you know,
that's the second day in a row Christy Curry's got caught a stray from Mick Gillispie.
I'm not a fan.
Second consecutive day.
I'm not a fan. I mean, like, that's the program where we just pretend they don't exist because they don't win championships. Look, I would love for Alabama women's basketball to go out and hire somebody that might have been in the WNBA that can go into a home and relate to the people that they're trying to get to come to their school because maybe they played in the WNBA, like you know, like a Dawn Staley, and win and say, hey, we're going to win a national championship. It just feels like it feels like everything wrong with athletics at not just Alabama, but at all the schools where you, if you're not trying to win a championship and you don't have the right people in place, then let's move on from it, you know, because you're not making anybody any money, you know, and that's business in itself. But I'm watching these guys that are out there that, you know, these kids that like the Ryan Williams types. Hey, he's bringing a lot of money to the school. And that's where the resources need to go, because that's business. That's how it works, you know. And now we're really in that, you know, with NIL, and eventually it's going to come down to where we're paying contracts anyway. So, Bama basketball is not overrated. I mean, you can say a lot of stuff on here, but you don't even start that, because we're cutting the nets down and we're winning the whole thing this year. Go to mybookie.ag and put your money on that. Big Elmo, you know, the last thing Big Elmo, one of his last acts, was putting $100 on Bama in the futures.
Ooh, I love it. Hey, you know what? Mick, that's rat poison, first of all. Not what Brett did, but what you just did. They were cutting down the nets. Hey, Ados is going to have to get on you about that. But they're not overrated. I mean, going into a season, there's no reason. They got one of the best coaches in college basketball, and clearly one of the best rosters, one of the deepest rosters. You still got to see it come together. You still got to see guys, you know, how do they manage the minutes for certain guys? I mean, to just assume, you know, that it's going to be perfect, but at the same time, this is what you do. You look at what you think a team's going to do as far as their coaching talent, their roster talent, scheduling, all those different things, and you say, okay, who's the best team in the country right now? Go out there and tell me who you would put, you know, above Alabama. If there is one, there's about one, maybe two at the absolute max. I mean, obviously, a lot of people think they're the number one team, so, and they probably should be. But just to say they're overrated right now, I mean, if they get in here and they're losing or they're barely winning basketball games against subpar teams and all that, if you get on here and make that comment, we're probably not going to highlight it. But I mean, that's wishful thinking at this point.
Well, that's a Georgia fan that's trying to figure out how they took another ass whooping from Alabama. Sorry, buddy. It's just happened 9 out of 10 times. All right. Brandon, back at it again. Clint, I'll let you take this one.
Solutions. 1, can't be predictable on downs. 2, take play call options away from Milroe. Agreed 1,000,000,000%. 3, remove true RPOs to establish the run. 4, bring Bill Belichick in as an analyst. That's a very interesting number 4. I don't think Bill would want to do that. I feel like he's kind of moving towards the media side of things, and he definitely doesn't want to go not just be under somebody, but be a minion. I don't know if that's the move he wants to make, but you know, what I will say is I do think there for a while it felt like that they were doing too much as far as you know, the design quarterback runs that looked like RPOs. But I actually agree with Brandon. I think they've gotten away from some of that. I think they need to have a good balance. It's not balanced. It's been too much one direction or the other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So thank you though for another great super chat. And honestly, guys, even you haters on here, I appreciate all you guys for hanging out with us and talking and it's kind of reacting now to this Alabama press conference and kind of what we saw today. Clint, as we start to kind of think about the end of the show, where's it go from here? I mean, where does it go from here for Alabama? Missouri comes in. It's another tough game. You're banged up. They can play some good football. I think the atmosphere is going to be really good in Tuscaloosa. 2:30 game. I love a 2:30 game. Feels like CBS to me. But this isn't a gimme. And then to me, the off week could not come at a better time.
Yeah, there's still challenges ahead. I mean, honestly, if Alabama's able to get things corrected, they can still be in the playoff conversation at the end of the year. That's a big if. That's a massive if. Like, so this is not me saying they're going to, and don't worry about it. They'll still be there. I'm just saying it's wild that you've seen. I mean, apparently Alabama just can't handle the state of Tennessee right now. Vanderbilt and now Tennessee, handing them losses. But despite that, they're one-score games. Vanderbilt's now in the top 25. It's about time they started getting some respect. They're a good football team. Tennessee's obviously got a lot of problems, but they're a good football team as well. There's a lot of teams right now that don't have it figured out. But Alabama's got enough where they gotta start coming together, and there is a lot of outside noise, and that includes this show. What we are is just outside noise. My hope is that they're ignoring everything we say. They don't even know we said it. We don't exist in their minds. They're staying focused on what they need to do. They're coming together as a team. They're holding each other accountable. If they're doing those things, then I still have full belief in Kalen DeBoer. I still have full belief in the Alabama program, but there's some obstacles that got to get fixed, and that starts against Missouri. I'm not just going to assume that it's all going to get fixed. I thought they'd come out firing on all cylinders after Vanderbilt. I thought with it being a big game, they'd come out against Tennessee. Neither one of those two things was true, so I'm gonna go ahead and say that they're just right now that they've got a lot to work on, and hopefully they do, but I'm not going to assume.
Yeah, I'd love to see them come out against Missouri and not just win the football game, but to come out and establish the run and some consistency, and just to look like the team that they looked like against Georgia, and kind of bring that mentality back. And it's going to take players that at the beginning of the season weren't really relied on because of injuries, but those guys can play. That's why they're there. The King Max and the Hubbards, those guys are getting the opportunities that they deserve. And that's why you have depth on a football field. So hopefully Alabama can do that. I hope that Coach DeBoer brings some intensity to the team this week, and that Alabama gets some confidence. And then the other thing is that I hope that we see some other receivers step up and really make an impact, so that Ryan Williams isn't the only guy that they feel like they can throw to.
German Bernard's doing some really good things. Mm-hmm. He is. Really need a third. Getting Kendrick Law back. And here's the thing: there's not really as much of an excuse. Now, granted, Justice Haynes caught 5 passes. Kendrick Law did catch 4, but he averaged less than 10 yards per catch. But when you throw the football 45 times, you're going to be able to spread the football out a little bit more. They're getting good play. I think Jeremy Bernard is a really, really, really good 2. I would probably I bumped him down a little bit. Kind of you viewed him as like a 1B. Right now I kind of view him in that 2A, 2 top tier 2 kind of range. Obviously, Ryan Williams is a top tier 1. And there's elements of these other guys they can utilize. And obviously Kendrick Law is valuable to the offense and what he brings, and other guys are too. But as far as getting production and guys being able to go out there and make plays, not blocking necessarily, that's a huge part of it, and that adds obviously. But going out there and catching the football, I do think they need a more consistent threat at that number 3 spot. And so, that can be Kendrick Law. I really believe that it can, get him some more gadget plays, manufacture some touches for him on jets, continue to do all those things, but get him involved in the traditional passing game as well, a little bit more. I think you'll be surprised. I mean, and it didn't have to be the vertical stuff. I mean, he's a freaking powerhouse. Just get him involved on some of the stuff underneath. Let him turn into a running back. You do a great job of designing plays to get the football in your running back's hands out on the perimeter. do some of that for Kendrick Law as well. Line him up in the backfield and have him running some of those routes and let him make some guys miss, truck some guys, do all that. I think that would certainly help. And then, people are bringing up Caleb Odom. I agree. I think he's a mismatch problem. I think it could be that for you. I think he's a good blocker just due to his size. And so they need to figure out a way to maybe get him a little bit more involved in the offense too.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that. What do we have going on this week on the channel? I know we'll hear from Mike Johnson and the All-American Report tomorrow, lining things up right now with Jake Coker for Elephant in the Room. And then Clint, you do a host of things as well.
Yeah, I'm going to be doing something with Stacy tomorrow that'll probably go out Wednesday morning if I had to guess. And then, Chris and I will be doing another preview show on Friday. And then over at covercrimson.com, we did talk them into one more week of the $1 deal. And that took us some convincing on our part. It was supposed to end on Sunday, but I said, you know what? I mean, you're following this game. It was an emotional loss. People want to have a place to go and talk about it. People do a phenomenal job of doing that in the chat. Carry this conversation over to Cover Crimson, and let's keep it going over there. It's only $1 for the first month. That's going to be ending Sunday. And as I've mentioned before, we're doing something pretty cool. We're going to be revamping the message board a little bit. It's going to be really sleek, really fun. But we're going to try to design something up where the OGs over there, the guys who are with us pretty much from day one, they're going to be getting a special badge that always represents the fact that they were day one ground floor kind of people. So definitely go over there and sign up, and I'll be getting my snap count observations done on the defense. Will be this afternoon or evening. Sometimes it kind of carries into the night, and then offense will be tomorrow. And there's going to be a lot of interesting stuff in there. So definitely go check that stuff out.
All right, guys, thanks for hanging out with us again. We'll be with you following the game, the next press conference. I guess they wouldn't have one for the off week, would they?
No, I don't believe so.
So we'll be on after the game, though, live, and then Clint
and
I'll be on again later this week. So thank you so much. Like and subscribe. If you're not a subscriber, please subscribe, hit the bell so you know when we're live. And then, as he mentioned, Cover Crimson. If you do the annual subscription, you get the Cover Crimson t-shirt. And also mybookie.ag. Use the promo code next round, double that initial deposit. Thank you, guys, all of you, for the super chats, for your time, for being part of what we do here. And again, roll tide, everybody. Talk to you again.